Memorial Day has a very specific purpose. And the whole reason of Memorial Day is to honor those men and women who gave their lives or their health so we could enjoy the freedoms that we enjoy today. Jeff Roy of the Purple Heart Foundation joins me now to talk about what they're doing for wounded veterans, really for all veterans as well. Jeff, thank you so much for being here, and thank you for your service.
Well, it's certainly my pleasure to be here.
I work with the Purple Heart Foundation on radio, and I love this organization just because you guys, the organization as a whole, from what I see, has really just gotten in there at the ground level to really work with veterans. I mean, even going so far to identify and help homeless veterans, and all, not just those who are combat wounded, but all veterans are helped by the Purple Heart Foundation. Now, this whole organization's been around since the 50s.
Well, the foundation's been around since the 50s, but the organization started in 1932.
Wow.
So it goes back to the history of when the Purple Heart Medal was really resurrected by General MacArthur.
Right.
And he wanted to recognize our soldiers that were wounded in World War I. And at that time, the Army had what was called a wound stripe that was put on their sleeve. So he asked the Department of Heraldry to go back and say, we'd like to develop a medal, and that's why the Purple Heart comes from General Washington, and that's why he's on the Purple Heart.
That's what I've always wondered. I have some veterans in my family that are Purple Heart recipients, and I've always wondered, and I've looked at them, and I've always wondered, well, why is that? Why does it look the way it does? And
because it goes, he did a medal called Badge of Military Merit that he wanted to give to a decoration to the common soldier. So this medal came from that medal. That's why it's the oldest military medal.
Oh, I did not know that.
It is, and when it was done, it was in 1932. So it was right after the Purple Heart came to being, and it was starting to give to the soldiers of World War I. That's when we got together as an organization for all the wounded veterans of World War I. So it is the third oldest military organization, but it's also one of the toughest to get into.
Yes, exactly. It is a very distinct group, that is for sure.
Right.
And Memorial Day as well. Tell us about the significance of Memorial Day. One of the things that shocks me is, especially like when I talk to my younger cousins and I ask them, well, tell me about Memorial Day.
Yeah.
They, and to me, I find this so sad, and I really wish that there was more of an emphasis on education about why we have the holidays that we do to recognize those who served, because they will think that they sort of they're all the same, no, but they're not. Tell us the significance of Memorial Day.
Yeah, you know, unfortunately, that's what we're losing in our education system today, the fact that people don't realize that Memorial Day goes all the way back to the Civil War, and it goes back to what was called Decoration Day. And that was a day when the veterans of those wars would decorate the gravestones of their fallen comrades. And then later, of course, we came to Memorial Day, and for us, especially veterans of any of the wars, it's a day we remember our friends that are no longer here. And for a lot of us, that's what drives our continuing to volunteer to make sure that today's veterans are not forgotten.
Right.
And unfortunately, you know, when we even speak at schools today, we get those same questions as, where does this come from, and why is it there? Because, as you said, all too often now we're talking more about the barbecue and opening of a park or whatever.
Right, instead of the real significance of Memorial Day.
That's right.
Absolutely. One of my favorite memories, my boys did Boy Scouts, and we would do the Memorial Day Good Turn at the when we lived in St. Louis at Jefferson Barracks.
Yeah.
Every grave got a flag. Everyone. It took us all day long, but every grave got a flag, rain or shine.
Right.
And that was that. I mean, and they really understood it, and it closes that gap. They understand really the sacrifice and what was paid to ensure these freedoms.